Janai Thornton, and I am part of Thank Me Later. And y'all know every single month we focus on a different topic. I have to admit, I'm a little biased. September, this is one of my favorite months where we are focused on all things scholarships, all things financial aid. And I think maybe as a student and as a parent, thank you, Jesus, who has put 2 kids through college. Thank you, Lord. All done. Praise the Lord. This topic is near and dear to my heart. So welcome tonight to our TML University Presents Everything You Need to Know About College Scholarships and Financial Aid. So if you're new to the Think Me Later community, or if you've been around for a little bit, our subject matter experts, they're not new. So first I'd like to, they're both pinned. I know that you could see them. Desiree Robinson, who is our scholarship subject matter expert. Let me tell you something. Anybody who has 3 kids in college at the same time, Jesus is all I can say about that. Girl, God bless you. But I can't wait for you to share your story, not just about having 3 kids in college, but the strategy that you used for your children to be either on full scholarship or almost all the way there for 3 kids at the same time. So we all know that's hashtag goals. That's where we want to be, right? Because scholarship means no student loans, right? So that's the goal. So I'm super excited about Desiree being here. I'm also excited about Lenora Jackson, who is the Director of Financial Aid at Spelman College, and who is just a wealth of resources. As somebody, again, who's put 2 kids through school, when in the world do you get to talk to the Director of Financial Aid directly? Like, this never happens. This never, ever happens. So I am grateful for the 2 of you for being here today and sharing and being open to sharing with our community because we desperately need this guidance and this help. So I'm super excited about it. So I just want to take a minute and kind of level set for today, because the reality is when we get this wrong, when we get the financial aid process wrong, when we get the scholarship process wrong, it equals a whole lot of debt. And so for a lot of us, you know, culturally, we kind of knew about the FAFSA and sort of knew about the financial aid process. Most of us don't really understand the scholarship process at all and how early it starts. So we have to completely reframe our thinking. So I need you all to bring open minds, right? I need you all to take notes. We're going to record this. We're going to post this in the community so you can play it back, share it with your friends and family. You may need to process this again, but you're going to have to kind of put away your old thinking here, because we need a completely different mindset shift to end up where you want to be in this process. But the consequences are too severe when we don't do this the right way, right? So I'm not trying to scare you. I just want you to know how important it is. Like, we really do have to approach this differently. Another thing that I want us to level set about is expectation as parents, because, you know, we always want to make sure our kids are happy and they get to go to school where they want, or even where we want them to be. Look at me, I'm proud to be an Aggie parent. I'm an Aggie, but where am I proud to be an Aggie parent? Because my oldest son was able to go to A&T, but he went there because that's where he got the most money to go, not because I was an alumni there. It was completely a money play why he ended up there. So just think about it this way. If you were going to buy a new car, right? You're like, oh, it's time for me to get a new car. You want it or need it. You're going to do some research. You might not get in your car, in your current car, and go straight to the Bentley dealership.
Right.
You might not go to, like, why am I even going to the Bentley dealership? It's not in my budget.
Right.
Because you've already decided what your budget is. Well, we don't realize picking a college for our kids is the same way. So we don't go to the Bentley dealership and we know we really should not be there. We might want a Bentley, but it's just not where we are right now. We're going to have to approach this whole college process the same way too. So I'm not saying that your kids can't go to the expensive schools, but we have to prepare to go to the Bentley dealership. We can't just roll up there. So just kind of think about that analogy as we're going through this whole process here. And one other thing that I wanted to say as a parent before I kick this off to our two amazing subject matter experts, I stand before you as a woman with two adult children, 28 and 32. And my youngest son, Cameron, graduated with not $1 in student loans, not one. So I know it's possible. My oldest son, Trevor, who lost his scholarship while he was at A&T, having too much fun, went back and graduated with about $16,000 in student loans. Wait, maybe about 20,000. So I say all that to say I've been through the process, and I'm a testament of like, I'm not signing nothing. I'm not getting no loans, no Parent Plus. I'm not co-signing anything. Like, I have been there. So as a mom, I understand the emotional journey too. So I'm with you. I want you to know I can stand in your shoes on this journey. I have been there. So without further ado, we're going to get started. So before we jump into the content, I want y'all to be thinking about your questions. Get them ready, because we're going to be asking y'all to drop them in the chat or come on camera with us and ask your question. One thing that I want to mention is the collaborative book that we just released, actually just a couple of weeks ago. And parents, it's affectionately called Take Care of Your Damn Self, right? And the reason why it's called Take Care of Your Damn Self is because we're intentionally trying to get your attention, because we need you as parents to take care of yourselves. And we need our adult children. We need to make sure we're positioning them to take care of themselves too. And these two topics here, scholarships and financial aid, are a critical piece to our children being financially independent faster. I can promise you that as the parent of adult children. My children were I was able to help them along a little faster because they weren't straddled with debt, right? So that's huge, 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 huge. So you can purchase our new curriculum. It's not just a book, but it's a full curriculum. You can go to endparentpayroll.com. So please check us out. And both of these ladies are featured, have two amazing chapters in the book. And we're covering everything: car insurance, how to be organized, legal, taxes. We have 11 amazing subject matter experts that are featured in this book. So please, again, go to End Parent Payroll and check that out. All right, Desiree and Lenora, I am so excited. I am excited. So what we're going to do now is we're going to kind of get into some real life scenarios right now. And so ladies, if you weren't with us in the Thank Me Later community last year when these ladies were both featured, that content is still out there. So please partake in that. But first, I want to kind of begin the process about just the confusion. A lot of times people have no idea where to start. So Lenora, I'm going to start with you because we're coming up on October 1st. Yes. That should be a ding, 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 a big deadline for people. So for us parents who are like, I have no idea where to even begin, can you kind of help us understand where to begin with the financial aid process?
Yeah, so let me just say this. First of all, for you parents who are out there listening, if you have a senior in high school, especially, we want to talk to you about them because right now you're at the precipice of what you need to do. I think next Saturday, if I'm not mistaken, is October 1, 12 o'clock, midnight, October 1st. Parents, please, prior to starting now, when you get off this call, pull together your tax return from, let's see, it'd be 2021 tax return. You will need to have in front of you to help you complete the FAFSA. If you know nothing about the process, for anybody who's looking to get their student any type of federal aid. Most schools, even before they will look at scholarships, they want to know what your need is, what your student's need is. So October 1 is what we call FAFSA Day, free application for federal student aid. F is in Frank, S is in Sam, A is in Apple. So you can go to www.studentaid.gov. But before you even can do the FAFSA, you need to have what's called a FAFSA or FSA ID. You can go to that same website. My suggestion would always be, if it's a two-parent household, mom get a FSA ID, dad get a FSA ID. The main reason is if one's around and the other's not around, one or the other can sign. Your child will be a dependent student when they go to school. You'll say, but they're 18, they're an adult. Trust me, they are not an adult. Adult people pay their own way in life. They pay their rent, their mortgage, their car note, their cell phone bills. They're not in your house if they're an adult, because it's hard for two adults to live together that aren't married. So your student will be a dependent student. They will have to do their portion of the FAFSA. Parents, you'll have to help them with the tax return information. And at the very end, you're going to use your FSA ID to sign. So one or the other, both parents don't have to sign, but a student has to have a FSA ID and the parent has to have an FSA ID. So make sure you do that October 1. In the meantime, you also need to be looking for scholarships. If you have not started that process yet, looking for scholarships, I know Desiree is going to talk about scholarships, but I just want to give you a little bit of something to start looking at. uncf.org. Look there, look at Tom Joyner Foundation. And I know she's going to get into a lot more with scholarships. So I'm going to turn it back over to you, Janai.
Thank you for that, Desiree. So my takeaway there for all of our people who are on, and if you just joined us, welcome. We're just getting started. But October 1st is a critical deadline. When she says the forms become available at midnight, that's her way of saying you all need to be getting ready to complete the FAFSA that day. Use this next week and a half to get your information ready to complete it. It is that important that you file early. Okay, that money is first come, first serve. All right, so Desiree, so when people are like, I'm completely overwhelmed by the whole scholarship process, don't know where to start, whether I have a senior or a ninth grader, can you level set for the parents out here? What's the beginning of the scholarship process?
Janai, actually coming off of what you and Lenora just said, I want to point out too that for parents who feel, oh yeah, I already know about the FAFSA, we're not going to get anything from the FAFSA, so I'm not going to do it. Let me tell you, that's wrong. You do need to do the FAFSA regardless of whether or not you think you might receive a Pell Grant or any additional funding. And here's why. For the scholarship process, many scholarship orgs ask for your estimated family, your student aid report that is printed from your FAFSA in order to consider you for outside scholarships. So again, whether or not you feel that you might receive grants or other financial aid from qualify, or you feel that you make too much money, you still need to do it. I recommend it because several of the outside scholarships that my students, that my children receive, require your estimated family contribution, the documentation that can only come from that FAFSA process. So just remember that. So Janai, to answer your question in terms of where you begin, first and foremost, once you and your child have confirmed that, yes, your journey together ends or begins with their college experience, the first thing that you need to do is to sit down and use some of the agreements that we have in Take Care of Your Damn Self, the book that we just recently published, and come up with some agreements in terms of the time and the dedication that you both want to put forth in the effort to see them off to college. It's one thing for a student to say, yes, I want to go to college. It's another when you see the energy from them and the commitment from them to the entire process. You notice that I said not you, but them. They have to be the driver in this process in terms of scholarship applications, scholarship essays. They need to be fully invested in their future. And just as Janai said when we first began, we want to encourage anyone to attend whatever institution your heart desires, as long as you are willing to put in the work. And when I say you, I'm not talking about parents. It is a joint effort, and everybody has to be in agreement. Now, honestly, will a great bulk of the work rest with the parent in terms of organizing? You know, oftentimes I would hear from friends, well, why aren't they doing this and why aren't they doing that? Well, first of all, I had two students at the same time who were in IB. They did not have time. If you have an athlete, sometimes, practices took up a lot of their extra time. So I had to organize a process to make it easy for them. If they weren't able to do scholarships, I had the old-fashioned tape recorder or use my phone. Tell me your thoughts about this essay prompt, and just let them dictate. And then I would do the typing. I was a partner in the process, but again, it's their process. So if you are willing to have a full-time, part-time job to fill out scholarships, it is possible. And I can say, I'm joining you, I said earlier to the team, I'm joining you from my nest. This is my egg chair. It's the nest because I'm an empty nester. And when you don't have to pay the school bill, you can celebrate, you can have snacks in your nest, you can have your wine, you can sit back as a parent and enjoy just being a parent as opposed to getting a second job to pay for a college or university that you and your student weren't committed to finding the money to help you pay and make it financially feasible.
Thank you for that, Desiree. And the only image I kept having in my head when I heard you talk about it was my oldest son, Trevor, smart as a whip, did good in school, tested off the charts, standardized test. When I tell you, if I taped a book to his head to have him study for the SAT or look for scholarships, it would not have helped.
Correct.
Like, he did not want to be a partner in the process. So I said, you know what, that's fine. Then you'll go wherever you go, because I finished school, right? I have the Janai Davis degrees. Your degree is not going to say Trevor and Janai Thornton. So I was able to kind of lay down the parameters of what I was willing to commit. And then we were finally able to get on the same page and make those commitments, like how we spent time on Saturday, literally scheduled. What evenings we worked on scholarships, literally scheduled, so we could get in the rhythm. But his effort determined how hard I was going to work. I was willing to meet his effort, not exceed his effort. So parents, please be very mindful of that. Thank you. All right, so Lenora, I have a question for you. And this, I know you and I have talked at length about this before, is how does a parent decide if a college financially is a financial fit for them? First of all, let's start with, how much does Spelman cost now for people? Go ahead and sticker price shock us right now. Spelman costs what right now? Director of Financial Aid, how much?
$45,000 a year.
Jesus, that is crazy to me.
It is crazy. It is.
So wait, that's the Director of Financial Aid at Spelman saying $45,000 a year is crazy. $45,000 a year.
Yes,
I can top that. I can top that.
So
my middle is $86,000 a year. 80, it's gone up. It was 84. Yeah, it goes up every year. So by the time he gets to his senior year, it will be 88,000 a year. My
youngest school, Desiree, what school?
I'm sorry, New York University. My middle son is at New York University.
NYU. $86,000 a year.
$86,000 a year. My daughter is at North Carolina A&T State, Janai School. That's now $36,000 a year for
Oh.
out-of-state students. And my youngest is $84,000 at Boston University.
Okay.
Oh my God.
So I will say that those are sticker shock. I mean, and Janai, when you said, is it a good financial fit?
Yeah.
Let me just say this. For Desiree, who has a child that's going somewhere that's 86, and the other amount I can't remember was
35, 36, and 84.
36, 84. Those are probably more money than our average family makes. So when you say, is it a good financial fit? Can I write a check to pay for those schools? How are you going to pay the cost? And my position is this, and I'm going to come from the standpoint of Spelman, simply because I have a granddaughter who graduated, proud grandparent, Spelman graduate, also who's in med school. I have another granddaughter at Spelman who is a sophomore, first granddaughter, no student loans. And trust me, it is not because I am the director of financial aid. She knew if she was going to be at Spelman, the money had to be found. We were not going to pay out of pocket. We were not going to get loans. She was not going to have loans. And the second granddaughter is on a full ride simply because her GPA, she came in with a 4.7. Parents, good financial fit means when you, at the end of the day, can you afford it? When you sit down and do your budget and you add whatever school it is, can you fit that in your budget without your having to get a second job, a second mortgage on your home, get rid of your car, do Uber? Can you afford that school without doing anything extra, and you can still live the same lifestyle you are living before your child goes off to college?
If not better, Lenora.
If
Same
not
lifestyle, if not
If
better.
not, and
Yeah.
if better is always better, because
Right.
now you have one less mouth to feed. So you could be better. And if you cannot do that, and that says if you can't do it, parents, this is when you got to put on your big girl's panties and not feel bad because thinking you've been a bad parent and you can't afford to send your child to the college of their dreams. Let me tell you what, an undergraduate degree is so important today, but almost today it's like having an undergraduate degree because they're going to have to go on and do more. So we want our kids, yes, number one, go to the school of their choice. But then it means that there's a lot of homework, a lot of effort that has to go into making that dream a reality. Scholarship, scholarship, scholarship. My question to all families, what's the best way to go to college? And if they don't say free, something's wrong. They have to know that the best way to go to college is free. And Janai's son coming out with $20,000 worth of debt, that's minimal. $19,000 worth of debt, I say, is minimal debt that any college student should have. And that's all subsidized loans, meaning they're going to be in a deferred status till they finish college, till they finish undergrad, grad, med school, whatever they're planning to do beyond their undergraduate degree. And they can pay that off pretty much on a regular job if they don't go out and buy the most expensive car, live in the most expensive place when they first get out of college. But financial fit is crucial. You need to look at, and people, we need to do our homework. What does it cost? Get online. What kind of scholarships does that school offer? Desiree said it best. And I, as a financial aid director, if you do not do a FAFSA, I assume you've got it figured out. I'm not looking to help you, because if you don't fill out a FAFSA, that's the least you can do. And so I'm not going to be looking to give you any money, because even the small amount, $5,000 out of somebody else's pocket, is better than out of yours. But if I don't see that you have a need because you didn't do a FAFSA, I'm not going to be offering you this scholarship. So parents, please understand, no matter what your income is, please do a FAFSA. If you're in the state of Georgia and you're going to stay in the state of Georgia and your child is eligible for HOPE, guess what? The state of Georgia expects you to do a FAFSA. Yes, you're going to get HOPE because you're eligible, but the state says you have to have a FAFSA on file. And got to do a FAFSA.
Got to do it. Thank you for that, Lenora. So Desiree, now that we're all in sticker price shock and laying on the floor, 86, 84, anything with an 8, I'm just like, you got to be kidding me. But let's talk about your journey of being able to have a child go to NYU full ride. Because you can say 86 and it's like getting a free Bentley. Like I got a $200,000 car, but I didn't pay anything for it. So I'm feeling really good about myself here. So can you kind of talk us through that process? Because a lot of parents don't know where to start. Do I start looking online for scholarships? Do I look at the school? Do I contact the Lenora Jacksons? Like literally, where do you start in this process?
So where we started, or essentially where I started after my children identified the schools, and we had an agreement. I asked them to, have their dream list, but on that list, please include an HBCU, identify an HBCU that carries your major, identify an in-state school that carries your major, and you can list as many of the dream schools that you have in mind. So that was me being thoughtful, realistic about what it is that we could take on. That's number one. For those who are interested, because I support HBCUs, obviously I went to the greatest university, planet Howard University. You can see that. So, but I did not insist that my children attend if it worked for you. And I'm that parent. If it doesn't fit, you must have quit. It's okay. You don't have to go. And I know some people, we've had, such and such men and women in our house for forever. No, this is the child's journey. So I wanted them to seek opportunities and be authentic in their process. And then I followed them. We took trips to those universities. We did summer programs at some of the universities, particularly the short list of the ones that they were interested in. Why? Because we were laying a foundation where we were being intentional about our movement to attend that school. You need to see this process approach it as if you are dating. You're dating Spelman College. Yes, you are going to some of the seminars in the school that Spelman College hosts. Yes, you are going to the homecoming games. Yes, you're engaging with alumni. Yes, you are meeting professors at their symposiums at Howard University or North Carolina A&T, wherever it is that you want to go, you want to build those relationships, because ultimately the people who decide about the money, you remember that student from Atlanta, you send a thank you note. I remember having a face-to-face meeting with my son and the department director at Howard University in his major. And when he was a sophomore in school and we were visiting, we set an appointment to meet, because at the point in time that his application came after that meeting, sent a thank you note. Hey, I will see you in the fall, my application. Those are opportunities to be able to engage early, for people to know your name, for you to stand out. So when it comes down to scholarship decisions, especially within departments, hey, this is that kid from Atlanta that came to meet with me and sent me thank you notes and kept me up to date or whatever. Let's definitely look at this, especially if you have departmental scholarships. So after you have done your students list, your student has done his or her list, then you start being intentional about looking online in those universities' departments. If your student knows what his or her major is going to be, or desired major, you look for scholarships within that school's website. You also, if you are a student of color, you look for scholarship and minority. If you are a female in a non-traditional field, or a field that is now actively recruiting, such as STEM, women in STEM, You look for women in STEM scholarships at that university. You also look online for the alumni associations. Now, you may not find them on the school's website. That's when you have to go to the Facebook, as they like to say, because the alumni organizations have postings on Facebook. They may not have Twitter. They may not be on Instagram. Some are very active, but some of the ones that are a little bit more established, they use Facebook to communicate their scholarship information. Sometimes it pops up at the last, I mean, literally, I stalked certain pages. I also did Boolean searches, you know, for my child's major, sports medicine, and that particular school. And then what would pop up would be a list of scholarships. Social media is a good place for scholarships because that's where people post it. Your churches, your local organizations, if you have friends. I put a post on my social media and said, hey, if any of my friends know of any scholarships, send them my way. And my friends definitely came through with a lot of scholarship opportunities that we were able to take advantage of. So they are everywhere, particularly in this season where so many disparities have occurred. There's money flowing everywhere from companies and corporations that have established not only scholarships, but internships. Those summer programs that you attend at schools are gateways to scholarships. I firmly believe that our investment in a summer program at NYU the summer before helped in my son's application, not to say his skills weren't there. His skills were definitely there to make it in a summer program, because you do have to show up. And when you show up, you do have to show out. Let me be clear. When you show up, your child has to show out. Show themselves worthy of those funds. They invested in him because he did something great while he was there. He made the necessary connections. So this isn't the time to be shy. This isn't the time to be reticent. This is the time to go out there and break a leg when it comes to a competitive pool that you will be entering into. You need to make sure that you have the background, the academics, we call it the ATL. For my platform, IADW.online, you have to have the ATL, the academics, you have to have the test scores, and you have to have the leadership that is long-standing and strong, and people who are willing to put a letter of recommendation in for you. Those are also gateways to scholarships, including your test scores. You know, of course, you want to take the SAT in order to qualify for National Merit Scholarship. So those who are more, feel more comfortable with the ACT, just be mindful of that.
And so everyone who's here, thank you all for joining. I know some of you have been joining at different times. We appreciate you being here. Please get your questions together. We're getting ready to open up the floor to you. But I heard a few key things from Desiree, and I want to make sure that you as parents, you heard them too. What I heard her say, a great resource or a great source of scholarships is not only the college that your child wants to attend, but the specific department of their major. Okay, so, and you can find that out now. If you have a sophomore in high school, a freshman in high school, and you know your child wants to study engineering, and you know they want to go to Georgia Tech or North Carolina A&T, like you can find out about those scholarships and the criteria now. And that's the point of this, is the earlier you start, the better. So the department is huge. Yes.
I do want to mention, I started collecting scholarship Excel spreadsheets, some that were old when my children were in elementary school, and I saved them on my computer. I can show you, I have some from 2011. And then I had all of these Excel spreadsheets and would go down and Google search to make sure that these scholarships were still active. Right. So when we say start early, I'm letting you know that I started that early.
Right. Go ahead, Lenora, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I would also say, Desiree, one of the things that students really, to talk to the financial aid director is probably rare at most schools. It just does not happen. Of course, for me, because I love talking to students and love to see them, it is so important that a student gets to know the people in the financial aid office. And I always ask students, where is the best place to work on campus? And they'll give me their major department. They'll give me some other place on campus. I always tell them, no, the financial aid office. It may not be that glamorous office. It may not be that office that's going to get you the recommendation to something, but it gets you close to the money. It gets the people in the
Absolutely.
office remembering. A lot of times I'll have a scholarship come across my desk. That student who's in my office, in my face all the time, who's talking to me in the cafeteria, I walk across him, that I've gotten to know. And it's not favoritism. They have been in talking to me, telling me their needs. I get to know their family. I get to know what's going on with that student. So I know that student is always looking for money. And I saw in the chat, somebody says a closed mouth won't get fed. And that is absolutely true. If you have a student in school and because you're taking care of the business, and this is one of the suggestions I have for parents, you must get your student involved in how school is being paid for, what their bill looks like. And so that they know this is not free for some. Some it's free and they don't have to worry about it. But if you are trying to put together the money that they're going to need to go to school, they need to understand that. And they need to have an investment. They need to be going by the scholarship office. They need to be talking to someone. And as Desiree said, in their department, the heads of their department, where is the money? Even though sometimes we let our students go places that we haven't totally figured the cost out, how it's going to get paid for. But there's a way. Once they get there, you must continue to look for money. You may have school paid for the first year, but how are the next 3 years going to get paid? I tell students it is a job to look for scholarship. You have to do it as if you're getting paid.
Right.
And the payday.
And you are getting paid.
You are getting paid.
Absolutely, you are.
Yeah.
The payday is when you get that check that says $10,000, $25,000. And I've got students who are getting checks like that from outside resources. So it's there. Also, sorority fraternities, let's not forget them. Your mom may be an AKA, but go after that Delta money, that Zeta money. Your dad may be a Kappa, but you go after the Q's money and Alpha's money. Whoever wants to help a student go to school, you apply to their scholarships. They're not going to ask you to join their fraternity or sorority. They're in the business of helping students pay for school.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Very important. Thank you both for sharing that information. So Lenora, my takeaway from you is your child needs to build an intimate relationship with the financial aid office. And I said your child.
Absolutely.
Your child. They don't want to hear from you before they hear from your child. So that's really, really important. I hear a lot of folks in the financial aid say, this parent calls me one more time, but I've never seen this kid once.
Right.
That's a problem. It's certainly a problem. Again, Desiree talked about that very specific money at the department level. Please engage with Desiree at IADW.online, IADW.online. That's another amazing resource of how to get prepared for the whole scholarship process. It will be very helpful. Desiree is the first parent that I've ever met. When her oldest son went to NYU, she called me and she said, he had gotten so much money that they had, I don't know how many thousands of dollars over they had. She's like, oh, what should we do with this extra money? And I'm thinking to myself, I've never heard from a parent who's gotten more money than what they needed from school, that they had extra money. And you think the school costs over $80,000 a year. So
we had to delay the disbursement. We had to ask them, some scholarship works, can you delay the disbursement until his junior year?
Absolutely. So her system is amazing. Okay. I've never seen this level of organization and preparation, and I see why her children have received so much money. I know her family personally. So as a parent, I was just blown away to go in her house and just see the system, the living system all around the house, the kitchen, it was everywhere. So please engage with her at IADW.online. So y'all, I'm going to start taking a few questions because we have tons of them. I want to get to as many of them as we can. So I think we've addressed this one. And Lenora, I'm going to direct this one to you. How important is the October 1st date for current college students?
It is very, 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 very important.
Okay.
And let me tell you why. Come November, a lot of schools will already start our process for the 23-24 school year. So
Okay.
we're basically done with 22-23. We're now moving on to 23-24. So that student who's currently in college doing their FAFSA early, especially if they're eligible for federal funds, they go very quickly. Pell, if they're eligible for Pell, they're going to get it. But if they're eligible for SEOG and they don't do their FAFSA till February, they may be eligible for it, but come February, that money's going to be gone. And we're talking about school doesn't start till next August. So if a current student is in school now and they're looking to figure out, well, how am I going to pay for school next year? This is why you do this early, so that you know already how much money you're going to need to prepare to pay next academic year, 23-24. So it's very important that students who are currently enrolled do their FAFSAs October 1 as well.
And
Thank
I
you.
also want to clarify too, that the FAFSA does not provide you with the scholarship money. It is a qualifying, it qualifies you, it certifies what essentially it's the federal government saying, we think you can afford this much money. You may disagree with it, but the appeals process, you're gonna have to deal with it. So they, the schools in the system, your student is supposed to identify the schools that they wish to attend, and then your FAFSA information is sent to the school. So don't expect FAFSA does not cut a check.
Right.
FAFSA tells the school, we think this family can afford this amount, or
right.
This is the aid that this family. So I just want to clarify that, because sometimes it's a little confusing. Mm-hmm. So just know that the financial aid directors make the decision based upon the FAFSA.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification, Desiree. My next question is for you, Desiree. The question is, how is scholarship matching addressed between schools? So, do you understand the question? I want to make sure.
Scholarship matching?
Yeah. So
that's probably one that that's probably Lenora's.
Yeah, I think what you're talking about, Janai, is a lot of students will get a scholarship. They'll apply to different schools, and this school will offer them a scholarship. And so they may go to that school and say, well, I've gotten this scholarship from this school. Can you match it? Can you give what this other school has given me? And let me just say this, most schools will not. It depends on the student. I don't know of any that will do it, because what they're saying is, if you want to be here, this is what we're offering. If you don't, we have other students in the pipeline. And I'll tell you, as small as Spelman is, last year we had 14,000 applications to come into Spelman.
Okay.
For a class that's 575 students.
Okay.
And so we don't care that you got a full ride somewhere else. We have this many students still wanting to get into Spelman.
Come in, right?
So
we're not going to match.
Right. They're not going to do it.
They're not going to do it. Okay,
it's not a bargaining process, too. No. And this, I just want to make sure that parents understand this. Everybody will not receive financial aid. Everyone will not receive a scholarship. And the process here is to be intentional. As I mentioned, this is dating, right? I want to be at NYU, you court NYU, you do what you need to do to get where it is that you're trying to go. You don't say to one man, well, this man makes this amount of money. Can you make this type of money for me? That's not how you enter into the process. It's supposed to be intentional. You know, and when you get into the bargaining, it sets a very bad precedent with your financial aid staff. And I wouldn't go in there, well, such and such gave me this. And the other thing too, I'm not a big advocate of telling people how much you got in financial aid. If you want to tout the scholarship, particularly the outside scholarship, because the scholarship orgs need, you know, that footprint for people to know that they have, you know, poured into the community. But what Lenora and other financial aid officers give you, to me, is a private matter. You don't go in and broadcast and say, you know, well, Spelman gave my daughter such and such or whatever, and put that on social media. I'm not a big fan of that. You can do whatever it is that you want to do, but I see that as a private discussion based upon your financial aid situation, and that should stay private. If you get something from Thurgood Marshall or any sorority or Greek letter organization or a business that awards scholarships and it's already out on social media, by all means tout it. But that is a private matter what the school is going to give qualifies you for. That's my opinion. Lenora, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, let me just say one thing, Janai. I want to be very clear when we talk about financial aid. Financial aid is an umbrella, and underneath that umbrella are loans, are scholarships, are grants, and any other kind of name you want to give it.
Work study, right.
Work study,
yeah.
People say I wasn't offered any financial aid. On that award letter or award notification, it may have a parent loan and a student loan because of your family contribution. We offered you financial aid. You just decided not to take the financial aid we were offering.
Right.
What you aren't getting, you might say, I didn't get any free financial aid. But financial aid is a big umbrella that covers the whole spectrum of dollars that students get. And to Desiree's comment about not broadcasting, it's so interesting you say that. I had a student in my office today, and I was able to give her a scholarship. And what I said to her was, I know you want to go and tell all your other friends what you see, but I'm going to ask you not to do that.
Absolutely.
I do not have that money for every single student. This scholarship is made exactly for you. I'm offering to you, but if you go and broadcast it, then it's going to be like, well, you got it, while financial aid gave her this, why can't I get it? And that is a very no situation. You don't want to be put in that situation where schools are feeling like they can't offer certain students certain things because there's a criteria and they look at individual students differently.
Right. Thank you for sharing that, ladies. We don't have a lot of time left, so I want to kind of move through our questions just a little faster because we have so many of them. So I'm going to just direct them to just each one of you so we can serve as many women as we can tonight. All right, this one is from Gloria Wardlaw. If one of you could answer this. She says, good evening, my son is a sophomore and has loans for his freshman and sophomore year. How can we get more money instead of the loans for his last 2 years? Which one of you would like to tackle that?
I would say that he needs to be out there searching for scholarships and he needs to be in the financial aid office, explaining his situation and why. Hopefully he has the GPA, because a lot of scholarships, especially when you're talking about junior and senior year, we're looking at what are you doing in school? What kind of student are you? What is your major? Checking with his department, checking outside resources. That's going to be the best way. He really needs to be in the office and really hounding and I don't want to use the word hound, really speaking up for himself, why he needs to be offered more money.
Yeah.
And there aren't a lot of gap scholarships that are available. So ones that I can mention would be, as Lenora mentioned, the Thurgood Marshall Fund, United Negro College Fund. They offer gap scholarships, and organizations like Jack and Jill of America Incorporated also have gap scholarships. By the time a student reaches the junior, senior year, it becomes definitely more difficult to find scholarships.
Yeah.
So then you'll have to be a little bit more defined in terms of the major. That's why one of the gateways for me is finding scholarships based upon a student's major, because there are professional organizations that students can be a part of as a student that govern that particular field that also offer scholarships. That's why they want to be active on campus and in the student organizations, because a lot of those fraternities and sororities, and I mean the professional ones in relation to the major, offer a lot of scholarship opportunities for older students.
Thank you for that. Lenora, this next one is for you. It's very specific to the financial aid application, the FAFSA process. She says, I have my ID. This is from Teresa, by the way. I have my own ID. I have my own FAFSA ID from my own financial aid package I received from attending college. Do I apply for my child's, her dependent's financial aid under her ID? Or should they be getting a brand new ID?
So the parent does not need, that FAFSA ID is lifetime. It goes forever. You never have to get another FAFSA ID. The student, her daughter or son or daughter, has to get their own FAFSA ID. The student is going to log into the FAFSA under her own personal ID. That is the daughter, son's FAFSA. The mother's FAFSA ID is only used to sign the FAFSA ID. That's all the parent is doing for their child. Now, they're not using the FAFSA ID to open up a new FAFSA. That is the child's obligation to do their own FAFSA. Parent uses their FAFSA ID to sign.
And I appreciate you, Teresa, asking that question, because I actually have a relative whose child is a sophomore. They had to reapply because she mistakenly created the FAFSA ID for herself, as if she was going to school and not for her son. And they lost a lot of momentum. So thank you for asking that. All questions are good questions. All right. Here's another very good question. This is from Tracy. She said, should you apply for scholarships before applying for the FAFSA? And she says, i.e. as early as the 8th grade. We were told by a financial advisor that if we were awarded scholarships, this would take away from our need-based aid with FAFSA.
So it depends. So a lot of times when you're doing the FAFSA, we don't even know that you've been offered a scholarship. We're awarding based on your estimated family contribution. So we don't know anything about scholarships. Those generally come after a student has told us that they have a scholarship coming. So it's not going to take away from their need-based aid unless they let us know on the front end, and we're going to have to count that scholarship as part of the formula that we're going to use to award them need-based aid.
Right. So, and you mentioned Tracy as early as the 8th grade. So you're not completing the FAFSA that early.
Right.
So the earliest that you would do it is your child's senior year. That's the earliest that you're going to do it. So you could be looking for scholarship money in the 8th grade, but you're not completing the FAFSA yet. And thank you for asking, because again, we want to make sure everyone is good. There was a part 2 to this question. How do state college savings plans like the 529 impact the amount of financial aid you may be awarded?
Well, it doesn't, because the 529 plan is almost like a third-party payment to the institution. So those 529 plans, however they're set up, those funds go directly on the student's account. They don't come through the financial aid office.
Okay. Thank you for
And
that.
keep in mind, the student could have additional expenses now, because just because I may not pay tuition and housing, books may not be covered. Transportation and travel, just like when we just dropped off my youngest to Boston University, dropped at least $2,000 between the hotel room and the expenses that were needed for his dorm that we had to purchase while we were there in a more expensive city. So there are other costs too that families have to think about as well, that you will be coming out of pocket for. Even if those expenses are covered through scholarships and financial aid, you still have the cost of living, monthly expenses the student may have, transportation, if in a major city, or if in a smaller area, they may need a car. My daughter needed a car in order to get around in North Carolina. So it's, you may have a full ride, but that doesn't mean that you're still not paying out of pocket.
Yeah, and to your comment, Desiree, one of the things when we're talking about a full ride, some full rides cover tuition, fees, room and board. Some full rides cover the total cost of attendance. So there's a difference in direct cost, the cost that you pay to the institution, which is tuition, fees, room and board. But as Desiree said, there's indirect costs, transportation, personal items that you have to buy, books and supplies. All of those go into helping a student go to college, where your full ride may just cover your tuition, fees, room and board, but they don't cover any of the other expenses. So those other expenses have to be covered somehow. So you need to, when you look at the award letter, it's going to tell you direct costs, indirect costs. What those indirect costs, they could be as much as $15,000. So you have to take that into consideration when you talk about where your child's going to go to school, how far away they are, how do they get back and forth home. Maybe that first time you take them, it's in the car, but when they come home for Thanksgiving, they come for Christmas, that's a flight. When they turn around, go back, that's a flight. So when they come home summer, how do they get their things home? Do they pack them in a storage unit where they, where their school is? So you have to look at a lot of different things that it takes for a student to go to college.
Right. Thank you for that. So it's almost 8. We're going to continue. We're going to go a little bit past 8, but ladies, we have several more questions. I want to try to get through as many of these as we can. This is from Farrah Brown. Hey, Farrah. Farrah says, what happens to the money from additional scholarships if they are awarded money from financial aid? So Desiree, you kind of hinted on this. So child gets financial aid and scholarship money. They don't need all of it. The bill is paid. What happens to the extra money?
So there are a couple of things, especially freshman year, where a lot of scholarship orgs have a lot of money and they award it to freshmen. And you may not know at that particular point in time what your financial aid outlook is going to be. Like, we didn't find out with my daughter until March. So we had applied for scholarships and we had additional funds. So once I realized, and keep in mind, as Lenora mentioned, when you get on the school's website, they will have an estimated cost of tuition every year. Even with NYU, it is guesstimated all 4 years. So we knew that by the time we got to senior year, tuition potentially could be $93,000. So once the school establishes that, you cannot exceed that estimated cost of tuition in your scholarship dollars. If you do, because I have, my ledger, I keep it and I'm writing down and I'm keeping it a tally of how much they're receiving. Once I realized that the financial aid, the outside scholarships exceeded the estimated cost of tuition, then Malcolm had to send letters to the scholarship organizations to be able to say, thank you so much for this. I'm very pleased to be a recipient. I would like to pose a question to you. Would it be possible to defer my disbursement until my sophomore year? Another, we had to say until the junior year. In certain instances, the organizations or also in that correspondence, it would be, or would it be possible for me to have the scholarship written out, the check written out directly to me? So some scholarship orgs cannot honor that for tax purposes. The money has to go to the school. In certain instances, we were able to get the check written to Malcolm. We have a family banking account that I manage. We all have access, and I transfer whatever is needed for each child because our accounts are still connected. So I transfer from the family savings, and I leave that money in savings in order to be able to pay bills. Sometimes it covers plane tickets that were unanticipated. Sometimes it covered the whole computer that was needed and things of that nature. So that is what's called when you, if you get too much money in a particular year, because we're dealing with that actually right now. Scholarship displacement is when the university says, oh, you have all this extra money. Okay, well then you don't need our aid. So it took a while for me it's being subtracted and I'm losing. And they say, no, you're not. I'm like, oh, yes, I am, because that means I have less money for other years. So that's why you'll have to negotiate with the scholarship board, potentially to either ask for that check in hand or for them to delay the disbursement. And some are willing to accommodate, but that's actually what happens.
Okay.
Let me just say this, Janai, too.
Yeah.
Desiree's exactly right. So also what you can ask is if they will say in a letter that this scholarship is for books only. So if for books only, the institution has to honor that and give you that money for books only. And when you have excess money, one of the things Desiree didn't account for is, say you have more than enough to pay your semester bill, and it's 5,000, 6,000, whatever left over. The institution will issue a refund to the
That's right.
So one of the things I like, though, is really contacting the scholarship donor, depending on how much extra money you have. If it's going to be so much, and pay attention to, especially when you get money from the institution, because some institutions will say, if you receive outside scholarship money, we are going to reduce our money. So that's very important to read every letter that they send you, because the institution is going to try to save their own money.
Right.
Absolutely.
As they
So,
should.
and so for parents who are in the state of Georgia, if Spelman offers you a tuition scholarship, but you also are eligible for HOPE, guess what? We're going to reduce our tuition scholarship, because our tuition scholarship, HOPE is for tuition. You can't have more than what tuition costs. We're going to use the state's money first, and we're going to put our money on second. So you have to pay attention to what letters you're getting, see if you can negotiate with the scholarship donor to figure out how you can spread that money out over the course of your matriculation.
Correct.
Thank you, ladies. Look, I'm learning some new things this evening too. Thank you for that. Lenora, this next question is for you. This one is from Karen, and she says, is there a FAFSA simulator where I can get familiar with the process? My daughter's a high school junior and I want to be prepared.
So what you could do on most schools' website, they have a financial aid calculator. So what you can do, you can go in there. It's not exact. Most of them create them very similar to the questions that are asked on the FAFSA. You can go in and put all of that information in. And at the very end, for that particular school, especially do it for a school that they're interested in, then it will spit out what that student possibility is of receiving scholarship money from that institution. And it won't really tell them their EFC, but it will help them understand the process. And most parents are afraid of the FAFSA. And let me just say this. It's really nothing to be afraid of. They're general questions. What's your name? And these are questions for the students. So parents, don't do the FAFSA, because when you answer the questions, you're going to be thinking about yourself and answer the questions incorrectly. Let your son or daughter fill that out. What's your name? When were you born? What is your address? What's your social security number? All those things are things most students, well, most of them, if they don't know their social security number yet, they should get to learn it. So the only portion that will be difficult for a student is when you get to the tax return. But if you read it, it says, look on line so-and-so. If you did a 1040A, look on this line, put that number in. If you did a 1040, look on this line. So it's very simple. And then at the end, you're just going to sign it with your FAFSA ID. But they should look on any school that they want to. There is a calculator that they can use to determine how much money they possibly could get at that particular school.
And then the tax information, FAFSA allows the tax information to automatically be ported over.
Yeah.
So it's even, you don't have to manually do it unless you need to.
Right.
So in my process, that's all I had to do. Once Sky's portion or my child's portion was done, I would go in and transfer my tax return over. Of course, you would have to file your taxes electronically in order for that to happen.
Yes.
Right.
Desiree, I forgot. It's called the tax data retrieval tool. So at the very end of the FAFSA, there's a question, do you want to use the data retrieval tool? And if you say yes, you don't even have to fill in the tax information. So now you're really good. So remember, you're 2 years behind for next year. So everybody should have their 21 taxes done. And you won't even have to pull those out. If you filed them on time, IRS has already done them. You hit that data retrieval tool and it'll fill that information in on the FAFSA for you.
Okay. Thank you, ladies, for that. This next one I'm actually going to take. This is from Sabrina. Sabrina says, if for some reason I'm unable to find scholarships and/or free money, is it recommended to obtain a Parent Plus loan? Desiree's like shaking her head no. Lenora's saying no, and I'm also going to agree with the no on the Parent Plus loans. Nope. There has to be another way. Got to be another way. So I want you all to treat loans like it's not an option. I want you to take them off the table. And now I want you to approach the whole financial aid college process like it's not even an option. Parent Plus loans are absolutely off the table. I want you to take them off the table completely. Okay. So I know way too many parents whose kids who did not finish still paying Parent Plus loans.
Yep.
I know people who can't retire because of Parent Plus loans. So we're going to take those completely off the table. All right. Lenora, back to you. If parents...
Can I just say something on that, Janai?
Sure.
About the off the table.
Mm-hmm.
That means if you need a Parent Plus loan for your child to go to that particular school, you need to find another school for them.
Yes.
Or money someplace else. Yeah.
Right.
Or a payment plan, at the university over bar. Or if you have to take a loan, which is not preferred, a private loan oftentimes is far better.
Yeah.
Than
Off
the
the
Parent
table.
Plus loan.
Yeah. And I'm not a fan of private loans either.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something. Private loans are from the devil.
Okay, so I just want to say that's the director of financial aid who just said that, ladies. That's a quotable. That's a quotable.
When you are talking about a private loan, that means you are putting your 18-year-old child in debt. And she has not spent one day in college. The student will have to get someone to co-sign. So that is a definitely no-no. Right. If anything, I would put a parent in debt before I put a student in a private loan.
Interesting perspective. Thank you for sharing that.
Yes. From the
devil. No, I meant the parent. Yeah. The parent would do the prep. That's what I meant, not the student, but the parent. Yeah. And the preference is not to have to take a loan, period.
Yeah. The only way a parent can do a private loan, it would probably have to be a loan against their house or something like that. But any private loans for school will have to go in the student's name. And that's why I say they're from the devil. I would never put an 18-year-old in that kind of debt.
Right. Thank you for that. All right, Lenora, this one is back to you. So if parents are separated, which parent files the FAFSA?
So if I'm the federal government,
Mhm.
I would say what they expect is for the parent that the child lives with. That is the parent probably carrying greater than 50% of that student's living expenses because they're covering the roof over their head, the food. Now, I just can't say otherwise because I am the director of financial aid. The federal on the FAFSA, it says tell the truth, 5 years imprisonment or $20,000 fine. So I will say what I have heard parents say, well, her dad makes less money, but she lives with me. I'm going to let him file the FAFSA because I know that he will that him doing it means she'll qualify for a Pell Grant. Federal government says, tell the truth. Who's carrying the load for that child? And if she lives with the mom and the mom makes $200,000, but dad makes 20, of course you would want to do that. But as a financial aid director, I would have to tell you exactly what the federal government says, and that's all I will say on that.
Thank you for that. Ladies, this is a question we've gotten from the Thank Me Later community, and not sure if either one of you can answer this. They want to know if there's scholarships for non-traditional schools, like maybe you've gone to esthetician school or hair, cosmetology school. Are you all familiar with a database for scholarships for non-traditional schools?
I'm going to let
Go ahead.
answer that because as far as I know, that most of those type of schools, students are taking out loans to go, and I've not heard of scholarships for them, but she may be more familiar with something.
There are some organizations that are specifically targeting students who are attending technical schools. I've seen scholarships for individuals who were previously incarcerated, so second chance scholarships. So it requires a little bit of a deeper search. And one of the things that I would recommend too is meeting with the contemporary of a financial aid director at that institution, Lenora's contemporary, someone who would be a director of financial aid or director of students, and sitting down and reaching out and finding out what resources exist for students here. There are some businesses within the field that offer scholarships. So if it is a technical, let's say for mechanics, I've seen scholarships for grocers, construction workers, all done by either private or some public organizations, either an organization that would be a part of that industry, or some civic and local organizations, or even sometimes there are scholarships offered by certain companies for families, employees, children,
Right.
who will be working in that industry. So you would just need to do a little bit more digging, but I would say start at that particular school, the administration at that school, to point you in the direction, because a lot of times those organizations will have reached out to that institution to say, we want to help, or we'd like to offer something to students in need, which may or may not be publicized. So they would be a good resource.
Okay. Only thing that I wanted to add to that is I know my son took a construction certification program several years ago, and it was paid 100% by a partnership between our church and a couple other organizations. So sometimes you just kind of have to, dig a little deeper, look a little wider, but there is some money. I don't think it's as prevalent, obviously, as college, but there are some money that's available. Okay, Lenora, back to you. If a child is a dependent on your tax return, is the income that they made included on the FAFSA?
Well, the question is asked, how much did the child earn? Because they probably didn't file a tax return. So there is a question that asks, how much did the student earn? So there's a parent side and a student side. So if they did earn money, they can put that money in and say they earned $2,000, $3,000. It's asked, and so it's asked, so you should put it down. And that's the answer to that question.
Yeah, definitely. Please report that.
I did have that scenario, and it did impact one scholarship, and we had to apply for reconsideration because, again, my daughter's estimated family contribution was different than her two brothers. They were my dependents, and she filed her taxes separately. So her estimated family contribution went up. As a result, we exceeded the threshold for that particular scholarship. Fortunately, we were able to have it reinstated, but we walked into this first semester with a potential deficit, and that was hurtful.
Yeah. And I will say to Janai, for family, if you feel like the estimated family contribution that the Department of Education has decided should be what you should pay for college, life changes. Remember, you're doing a tax return you're doing a FAFSA from income from 2 years ago. Your income may not be that same. COVID hit, things may have changed. So if things change, that son or daughter who worked and earned income, now they're going to college. That was 2 years ago. They no longer have that income. You need to go into that financial aid office and talk to them. What are the procedures for me to do an appeal for my financial aid? Special circumstances. Because if your income is no longer the same as it was 2 years ago, you don't want an EFC to dictate what money you're going to be eligible for. So you should always seek out an appeal, special circumstances to what you had to fill out for the federal government.
Absolutely.
Thank you for that. I'm going to take one more question from the Thank Me Later community and then one more within our chat, and then we're getting ready to wrap up from the evening. This is another difficult one, and I hear this all the time. Deborah says, I want to know how to get graduate scholarships. Paying for grad school is expensive, and I don't want to go into debt doing it. 1-800-HELP, she said. 1-800-HELP. Any insight on scholarships or funding graduate education, ladies?
One of the things I would say, it's a lot easier to get graduate help coming straight out of undergraduate school. Because, I mean, you're coming straight out and those schools are looking for those students to come in. You know, some students will sit out several years and then decide they want to go back to graduate school. That's something that I think is going to have to do some research, checking with that institution, what money they have for older students. And a lot of times schools are looking for a certain population. So you really have to do the research. But coming straight out of undergrad, going to graduate school is much more easier to get money for graduate school than sitting out for several years. And people sit out for various reasons. Some students aren't ready to go to graduate school, but I think you have to do some research. And I don't know if Desiree has anything else she'd like to add to that.
I do have graduate school student loan debt. I did not graduate from undergraduate school with student loan debt. I finished my master's in 2012, and 10 years later, I only borrowed $25,000. 10 years later, I still owe $16,000. You do the math in terms of how long that takes. So that's why I'm a staunch advocate. Had I known what I know now, I would have proceeded differently. There are certain things that I should have looked into, such as employer-sponsored scholarships. Sometimes some of the organizations that you are a part of offer graduate study scholarships. Again, the discipline, the major of your that your focus is, searching around through the internet for scholarships, back to school scholarships. There is a lot of money out there, particularly for women going back to school, minority women going back to school. Unfortunately, they are not as prevalent as the undergraduate scholarships.
Right.
They're not as widely advertised either. And let me also stress the professional associations. I encourage my students when I was a college professor to join the student organization of the field that you are entering into, because that's where you find access to not only internships, but scholarship opportunities for graduate school. So again, the pool is a little bit, it's not as great, but money is there. The abundance, not as much. And if you are a part of an organization or a church on this call, I want you to consider advocating for scholarships. If you work at a job or are part of an organization, advocate for graduate level scholarships, for there to be reconsideration or adding a tier to your scholarship program where it is that you may work, live, or play, and make sure that it is available and widely advertised.
Thank you for that. So our final question for the evening, and I know there's several that we haven't had an opportunity to get to. If y'all need an encore of some sort, y'all gonna have to let us know what it is, how we can serve you and fill the gap, because we're coming into financial aid season, scholarship season, like right now, literally right now. We wanna make sure that you all are ready and equipped. Desiree, this question is for you. It's from Tangela, and she says, Desiree mentioned most scholarships committees require the FAFSA. Is that for merit scholarships as well?
For merit scholarships, most definitely, because those are the ones that I typically deal with, and those are the ones that my children actually were awarded. And so there are two basic types: need-based, which is what Lenora is speaking of primarily due to financial aid, and there are merit scholarships. Those are scholarships that can also be awarded by an institution for your academics, for your leadership, for your test scores, also for scholarship organizations. Now, not all require the FAFSA. Yeah. What I just wanted to stress is that even though you may feel that you may or may not exceed the income level where you would receive the need-based aid, it's still necessary and a useful tool to have in your pocket in case you have to substantiate, because some of the organizations are comparing, because right now everyone has a 4.0, 4.5, 4.6. So sometimes the deciding factor is the need. That's why a lot of the organizations will ask for your student aid report, which is generated through your FAFSA. So I want to encourage that. And then also, in terms of the resources that you can utilize, I want to stress too that on IADW.online, under the shop tab, we have an activity log for your student. We have a college application tracking sheet that you can purchase and download, a scholarship tracking sheet, and a college choice calculator to be able to help you organize some of the resources and the path that you want to take when you are searching for the scholarships. These are Excel spreadsheets that are available and curated for that purpose, for you to be able to organize those scholarships. And you may want to manipulate the Excel spreadsheet to include merit, to include ones that require the student aid report. So there are a number of ways that you can approach it, but I think the merit one, sometimes if it comes down to you and another student, sometimes having that financial information helps the organization make the decision based upon largely need, oftentimes need.
Yeah. And let me just say one other thing to that, Janai.
Sure.
Schools such as Harvard, Yale, they don't even do merit-based scholarships. They only do need. And that's because everybody coming, not everybody, but most of the students coming, they're going to have the high GPAs. So what they're trying to offer students are need-based. The only way to know that you're need-based is to do a FAFSA. So that's why if your parents make under $60,000, you can go to Harvard for a full ride.
Mhm.
So for Spelman, merit base is truly that, just merit. We do not look at your income. So we may have a parent that makes $1 million, but if their student has the high GPA, the SAT scores and that sort of thing, we're going to offer them the merit because they've earned it. So it depends on, so you need to look at the school's website, see, do they offer merit? What does the merit mean? Now, if you're talking about outside resources, such as Desiree was talking about in terms of merit, then it's going to be, like she said, it could be between me and you. I might have a 0 EFC. Looks like I need the money much more than you. Your EFC is 100,000. Doesn't look like you need it. Looks like your parents can pay. So it could be the difference between the two of us, and I may get the scholarship over you, even though our GPAs match, our SATs match, but our EFCs are totally opposites. So when you're talking about merit, you really need to read the fine print and look at what it means. What does that corporation industry mean when they say merit? Is it truly merit based on GPA, or is there some need involved in that? And that's why it's so important, no matter what your income is, to do that.
And look at the
1,
previous scholarship. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Lenora.
no, I was just going to say October 1 next week. Let's be on
That's
it.
right.
Let's get ready, ladies, for sure. The good news is this, we will obviously post this within the Think Me Later community. So you can come back and watch it. You can certainly let your friends and family know about it. It's super important. We are our sister's keeper. You know, we have to make sure that we're sharing this opportunity because it does not happen to have access to people like Desiree and Lenora. It doesn't happen. So, and we know that, and we are super grateful for them being so generous with their time and their knowledge and all of the information. So please, again, share this with other folks, watch it again. If y'all need an encore, y'all gonna have to let us know. You know, we're gonna have to know how we're able to serve you. One last question that I want to answer because it was a super quick one. DeMartha, you asked if you're listed on your elderly mother's bank account, will it impact your FAFSA? No, it will not. So don't worry about that. So I didn't want people to be like, oh, I'm scared. I'm listed on my child, my mom, my grandmother's account. Not an issue for you at all. So thank you all so much for engaging with us this evening. Please make sure that you visit IADW.online. Again, IADW stands for It's a Different World. IADW.online to get the resources, the information you need to guide you through the scholarship process. Again, you can engage with us within the community. You can watch the content from Desiree and Lenora from last year too, to help fill any gaps that you have. We have some amazing content from last financial aid season. And then certainly you need to engage with us at End Parent Payroll, endparentpayroll.com, because you want to be on the side where me, Lenora, and Desiree where either our children are grown, done, out the nest, in out of the pocket. It don't matter if they out the nest and you're still supporting them.
Right.
You know, listen, I salute you, girl. I salute you. I salute you here. Yes, girl, celebrate. Desiree has 3 children in college at the same time, right? That's amazing.
Yes.
2 of them over $80,000 and not a bead of sweat on her forehead. That's all I'm saying. But if you seriously, if you need the guidance getting to this point, the curriculum from our collaborative book, our collaborative curriculum, Take Care of Your Damn Self, can help navigate you there, because that's the goal. Our goal, we want to get them graduated from high school. We want them to go to college, graduate school, med school. We need them to be financially independent.
That's
Yes.
right.
Because we need to be living our life. We've put so many things on hold.
That's
You
right.
know, the life, the dream that we had for ourselves, the quality of life. So we need you to retire when you want, travel, you know, redo your kitchen, buy the new car. That's not going to happen until we get our children financially independent. So I know too many kids who've gone to college and their parents' lives are just the same financially, if not worse, after graduation because they're still supporting them. That's the truth. That's the truth. But it doesn't have to be that way. So please engage with us again at endparentpayroll.com. Did I miss anything, ladies? Did I cover everything? Lenora, Desiree, Tiana, did I cover my checklist? Am I good on everything?
I think you covered it. Thanks, ladies. That was great.
Thank you, ladies. I appreciate you, Lenora and Desiree. I mean, so much to move them back. Thank you for being so generous with your time and your talent and all of your knowledge. And everybody have a good evening.
You too. Bye-bye.
Good night, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Good night.